Mentioned something about Brian Block's shop. If you can see mine, it's cluttered. It's got stuff everywhere, and I keep packing it in here every time I find a good deal. That's okay with me. I understand a lot of people can't stand cluttered and everything. My wife, she has to sit there and put everything in proportion before she can cook a meal, clean off the countertops, everything. Me, I guess I could throw it on the floor and be okay with it. I understand different people. That's okay. I work and so many things going on. Things get tossed in where I can and I go on to the next project, and that's just the way it's going to be for a while. The reason I mention this is Brian Block shop looks just like this one or worse. And I'm going to tell you why it does. Brian Block is an excellent machinist. He kind of specializes in bigger things for tractors right now. Lifters, manifolds. I'll put a link to his channel. You truck guys may learn something from him. He builds things for pulling tractors a lot, and really neat stuff. Now, Brian Block does that on the weekends and nights. He's got a full-time job at the John Deere dealership. Then he's got a YouTube channel, and believe me, editing these videos takes a lot of time sometimes. And then he farms his property around his house, grows corn and soybeans. The man never sleeps. He's got a work ethic that I've never seen before. So I'm going to give him a little slack on how messy his shop is, and I'm hoping you will too. With that said, let's get to it. Thanks all the new people. Uh-oh, more murder chickens.
Murder chickens.
He's got in the back.
Murder puppies.
Murder puppies. Sorry, Bailey. Bailey has given me free passage past the murder chickens. I've paid the dues.
Yep. The number one money maker, the old Little Monarch, which swings 20 by 96. So use it for all small jobs. Cutting the turbo housing on there now for a project.
I like you talking about all small jobs. So, obviously, I need to show you what a small lathe is, sir. My biggest is this size lathe.
So, well, say then you get like this compressor cover here. See, it's like this because that's the only way I could swing it on this little lathe. So
now you can go out there.
Now on the other one I can swing it and not have to do that to make it fit. So, and that's just a little job. That's a common little job I do right there, machining these turbo housings for different wheels, different classes, different requirements.
Tractor pulling,
yeah. And drag racing, diesel trucks and tractors, all sorts of.
See, even you have a handle.
Yeah.
I don't have that.
So this one's just like the other. Of course, this one's the way my DRO is on the carriage, so it travels with me. But yeah, everything can be controlled right here on the carriage. Even the forwards and reverse of the feeds, done with the.
As it should be. I mean, it's a long way down there when you're working. So you got hot chips flying. You don't want to come back down there.
Just put it in gear and go. That's the thing about it. It's limited on speed. This one's 487's tops on this one, so it won't turn as fast as the other machines. But it's a 1941, so it's a little older. My 20 is a 57. The 16's in that same area, 57, and they'll do 11 or 1200. They really get with it. So I feel your pain, but a lot of things you can do at that speed. I mean,
It's all they used to have.
I even do hard turning on it at that speed. It works fine. So.
I remember this one.
Yep. It's a Cincinnati. It's a machine that'll take the biggest cut of anything I've got. Even though it's only 25 horsepower, it'll
Yeah, but it's
eat some material.
You've got that arm sucked back in right there. It won't move anywhere.
Yeah. Just take that right angle attachment off there and run full power out the spindle straight, and it's strong. So it's done a lot of work, but it suffers from that Bridgeport teeter-tottery thing, so you got to be cognizant of that when you're milling large pieces, particularly with the right angle. Of course, it shows up if you're doing it sideways. It doesn't matter if the table tips one way or other. Only matters if
That's
it's
a
kicking in or out,
pretty
but
large saddle. You wouldn't think it would tip that much.
It'll tip 3/1000 from one end to the other. You know, up one on one and a half on one end, down 1.5 if on the other, so you get a total of 3 out. So basically, you wind up with a 1.5 crown in whatever you mill if you're trying to do something flat over the entire table length. But again, you're talking 7 feet, so that's a pretty good distance.
Planer territory.
So, yeah, or Boar Mill.
Or boring mill.
So. That's my fancy drill bit grinder. Most expensive drill bit grinder in the world.
Why? Because
Well, because according to right here, according to the Naval Bureau of Aeronautics, in 1959, it cost $3,320.
Don's got one he'll sell you for 50. He bought one that this part is messed up on. It's a different brand, $50.
So this thing, it goes in and out and spins all around. It puts these spiral drill points on. Probably one here that's been sharpened somewhere.
I got a new, come on camera. I've got a new, well this just doesn't want to focus. I think it's this light.
So if you notice, there's no flat on it.
Right, it's gone.
The cutting edge
Goes all the
curves
way
and
around
goes
it.
all the way around. The other thing it makes is it makes a true round point, so the drill bits don't walk off. Wherever they go down, that's where they stay. They don't
Right.
wander because there's no flat.
Well, my new tool and cutter grinder came with a device to do that also.
Yeah.
It's a step tool Healy, I think it was a Healy point machine, and that was its claim to fame. It would do a point to where you didn't have the chisel point on it.
Yeah, it's got a helix point instead. That's the wheel dresser and everything, but yeah, this thing.
So are you using that to sharpen all your bits now, and with that point on them, or you just?
Yeah, pretty much. Anything when I resharpen it, that's what it winds up getting switched over to because it works a whole lot better. It doesn't tend to make long stringy chips come out either. They tend to break
Easier,
more, so you wind up with
safer.
Yeah. You don't have to. Well, you can just drill a hole. You don't have to manually keep breaking the hole all the time.
Right.
You know, on these mills like that, you get stuff table feeding because it doesn't have a quill. So it's a lot more trouble to start and stop one of those continuously because you're engaging and disengaging the table feeds to break a chip versus just doing it with your hand. So
That
if you have
machine's
something that can just go in and just drill a hole, and you wind up with chips like these coming out when you drill the hole, it's a whole lot easier to deal with. Plus they pack in the barrels easier. I usually take a 55-gallon barrel of chips out of here every month.
Well, this is a nice big long, it was an old car garage?
Yeah, this was a 9-car garage originally.
9 cars.
9
Wow.
cars. There's only 2 left. There's 2 51 Chevrolets over on the other side of the tarp.
You got lots of tooling hanging around. It's amazing what it takes.
That's the little heat treat oven.
And what is this?
That is an injection pump test stand. It measures the fuel flow out of the injectors, and those are the calibrated graduals up there on the top for each cylinder, so you can balance the fuel delivery between all the cylinders.
Didn't you just do some manually checking them?
That was just the injector part. This
Oh.
is for the pump.
Oh, okay.
Typically, it's run with a set of orifices to a calibrated number, and that's how the pumps are all calibrated so they fuel a particular amount for whatever application it is. Now, for my setup, I can actually run the injectors that the pump runs, so I can actually calibrate each individual cylinder to the injector to balance them exactly, which is not something that's typically done. But it can make a difference, because if you just put stock stuff on that's calibrated, there can easily be 50 or more cc's delivery difference in it, which from cylinder to cylinder.
So you do a lot of work on tractors, parts, and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good.
And that's the follow rest for the Monarch. I never thought I'd ever find one, but I did find the follow rest, and of course I got 2. I got a big steady and a little steady for it. The big steady's there, and the little steady's over there on the floor.
Yeah.
And see, it kind of looks like the one you brought.
Yeah.
So,
I stepped over yours and tripped over it for about, 2 months?
and then
Because the
that-
only place I could put it was in the door of the shop. It was a pain.
It's the Thompson surface grinder. It's a 12 by 24 grinder. So all this stuff will be migrating to the other shop, and then it'll just be woodworking stuff left in here.
That's what I thought when I added the 20 by 40 onto my shop. That was all going to be woodworking. Then the planer showed up, took all of the best laid plants. What brand of planer is that one?
That's a Powermatic. "18-inch Powermatic," and then that's the Mayflower Edition Lincoln welder. It's a 300 amp Lincoln fleet weld, called fleet weld because they were used to weld up the Liberty ships. So that's a World War II vintage welder.
A nice long joiner there.
Yep, that's a Porter. Also 18-inch joiner. The joiner and the planer came out of the same woodworking shop, and that woodworking shop's line of business was they built the Cape Cod looking Long John Silver's building packages.
The insides of them?
They did all the woodwork for those whole buildings. They built all of the the molding and the planking and the seats and all that stuff when they had the big
nautical
the
term.
polars out front and the big ropes and the gang planks and all that stuff, and they had all of that package, because all those buildings were built the same, and that first generation of Long John Silvers in the 60s and 70s, they did all the woodwork. This shop that this came out of, because Long John Silvers is based out of Lexington, so that was their headquarters. And the shop that built all that stuff was over in Paris, and they built the packages to where they could haul it out and put up a Long John Silver somewhere. They were all cookie cutter, made the same. that's what they did with these, was they built all the woodwork. And then that famous, that's a hollow chisel mortiser, that was out of that same shop.
What are you doing with the cylinder liners?
Those were for a deck plate engine. That's why they've got the funny lips on them where they're turned way back, because they're for a different application to decube an engine to meet rules regulations.
Ah. Excuse me there. You must have feet of iron.
Says the metal chips have never bothered me. I just walk on all the time. And that's all my 50s stuff, tooling. So I keep everything on carts for this.
Yep. Makes it nice.
Looks like this is all tooling for the CNC, for the Cincinnati. These are a bunch of those shunt hydraulic tool holders. You know, they don't use the set screws, they just
Right.
hydraulic clamp the end mill. They're really sweet. They got no run out at all that you can detect virtually.
Now that's a nice sauce.
So, yep. Special boring tool. Of course, this is a common block. I got some more down there. This is Davis tooling setup, but they were big into these boring blocks where they have cartridges of different bore sizes, and you just put the cartridge in the same holder, and you can bore whatever size you want.
Well, that's a handy way of doing it. Put in new inserts and you're almost on size.
So, yep. Yeah, within whatever tolerance the inserts are, you're on whatever size. So if you're using good grades of inserts, it'll be less than a thousandths on size every single time. And because there are two, there's no walk. You know, there's no deflection. There's no push off. So you don't wind up off size because of tool deflection. When you punch a hole, it's that size hole. And this was a special block to make two different feet. This would bore it and cut the counter at the same time.
One tool.
One tool, two finished dimensions.
That's how they used to do it before they got the CNCs.
Yeah.
Yep. Do you keep your shop air conditioned?
So,
Or do you need it here?
to some extent, there is an air conditioner in there that runs in the summertime just to keep the humidity down, and then I run those little milk house heaters to keep anything from freezing and keep it try and keep it above the dew point, because we have terrible condensation issues if you don't keep it.
That's why I was asking, because all your tooling being out in the open like this.
Yeah, if you don't keep it temperature regulated in here, it'll just sweat like crazy and rust up.
Same problem in Houston. I have 3 air conditioners going all the time, or heaters.
Yeah.
But don't turns to rust.
Yep. Way in here, you got to either keep the heater on or keep the AC going, or it all goes south.
Well, let's go in the other room.
Particularly in the spring and the fall. It's not too bad in the summer and the dead of winter.
Don, that's a 12-inch standard.
Yep.
My friend Don just did a wonderful restore job on one that he bought, and it was banged all up. The little cups you have here on the end, his had a circular cup that somebody had welded some things on. He cut all that off, put some nice cups on it, got it all straightened out, did his paint job on it, plugged it in, and it ran for 10 minutes and blew up the engine.
That's no good.
It's not any good. So they're trying to determine what to do with it.
Well, this one's 480 volt, and you can't change it. So it's always run 480 volt on 240 for me, which still has plenty of power.
Still half speed.
No, it runs full
get
speed.
hot?
Full speed. It just won't. The torque output's
Okay.
about half of what it should be. So instead of it being 5 horse, it's about 2.5 horse. But it runs just fine. Like it's
I
a little
had
slow
a-
to speed up. It come up when you first click it on. It takes it a minute to wind up, but it does just fine.
I have two tools in the shop right now that I can't change from 440, and I had a more jig bore at one time that came with a transformer about a foot long, about 8 inches square, that was mounted onto the base of that and takes 220 to 440. So I have to keep it with a tool cutter or I'd give it to you.
Well, I've got the transformer down there in the other shop.
Oh,
That's why I've
okay.
got 240 and 480 both in that shop. The
Well, this
base
is-
converter makes 240, and then the transformer bumps it up to 480 for all machines that require 480. Like the Monarch, it's 480.
Well, this is a shock. Brian Block is a health fanatic.
So, I mean, how else are you gonna pick those tools up and put them on the lathe if you don't stay in shape?
Don't forklift,
So you got
bridge crane,
you got to practice.
and Don.
So, I don't have a Don.
You don't have a Don?
So I
Don has turned out to be a very good friend. I kid him a lot. He kids me a lot back. The lockpickle comparer.
yeah.
Where do you find you get most of your machines? People ask me that all the time. I do a lot of searching.
Yeah. Sales, Craigslist,
But you're up here closer to the
auctions.
machine world than we are down where we are. A lot of the machines get taken to Mexico.
Yeah.
They'll come in and they'll buy everything in the shop and take to Mexico. And it's very hard for us to find decent machines.
Well, you're not buying the right type. If you buy CNCs, you can get all them because they won't take them to Mexico.
Well, I
went
see
to-
a lot of CNCs that are just problematic sitting around.
I went to an auction in St. Louis 2 years ago, I think it was, maybe 3 years ago. Can't keep track of time. They had a bunch of boring mills, like 40 boring mills probably, and they were all big machines. Some of them were bigger than my machine. Mine would have been on the small end of the boring mills that they had, and the machines from the 40s and 50s that were mechanical, they brought $20,000-$30,000 and went to Mexico. The CNC machines that were less than 10 years old, they brought $2,000 to $3,000 and went to the scrapyard because they wasn't taking them to Mexico. They didn't want that electronic stuff because they couldn't fix it.
Well, the only CNC machine I have is a Bridgeport Torque Cut 22 from 96. And it works fine. It's 4-axis. And it's the least used machine in my shop.
If you were doing production, though, it'd be
If I were doing something 2 or 3 times, or you got enough tooling.
So, yeah, that's all boring mill tooling to actually use in the spindle because it's Morse taper 7.
Look, I know how to use one of those.
So, yeah, my scraper, power scraper. There's reamers in those boxes over there, a set of Morse taper reamers and
You're all set up. And
hardness testers back over in there in the back. Most of the premium measuring tools I keep in here because it's the most climate controlled.
mhm.
Stayed pretty good until a raccoon tore through the roof last year. And come
Oh.
in here. He jumped through the ceiling tiles everywhere. That's why all the ceilings falling out because the raccoon decided he was going to cannonball through the all ceiling and bust it all up.
Had a party.
Yeah, he had a party until he got shot. But he had an accident. Jaggers.
No, sir. In today's political climate, I'm sure you're mistaken. It must have been the murder chickens that took him out.
So, I don't know what happened to him. He fell hard after something impacted him. So that's the half size of my 8-footer down there. That's
4-footer.
I think it might actually be 5. Looks long for
it's
4.
5.
I think it's a 5. And that's the mate to my bridge style that's down there. And then this is my precision boring mill level. That's an awesome level. It's a 1/10 of foot level.
Looking around, you have many varied interests, from woodworking to weightlifting to machine shop. A man after my own heart.